Hi, my name is Mark Keene from Keene Engineering. I'm here to show you a couple products. This is our standard RC1 Crusher that I've been selling for close to 35 years. It's been a good workhorse. It's gone through lots of changes over the years, but it's a good, simple, low-cost crusher. What it does is that you can take like a 1" and minus rock and you can crush it down to powder. You can basically take, let's say, a 5-gallon bucket of 1" and minus material, run it through the machine 3 to 4 times, and typically get it down to about somewhere between 30 and 80 mesh. But I'll give you some more demonstrations on it later. The one thing I really like that we're trying out today that's brand new is the little cart for it. Now if you look at this cart, it's really kind of nice. And what's nice is we have these nice soft pneumatic wheels. So if you're going to roll it over like a road or a desert up and down hills, you can do it. You're not going to have to muscle this 60-pound piece of equipment around. So this really adds a lot of mobility, but it does more than just that. I'll show you what we do with it here. You take your standard 5-gallon bucket. Now we did make one modification on the bucket. We punch about a 2-inch hole in the side of it, and I put a little rubber seal in there, and that allows me to create a vent for the bucket. See, in any kind of a crushing device, especially when you have something spinning inside, it actually acts like a fan. And what happens, it sucks air through the feed trough, through the machine, and the air has to escape someplace. Otherwise, it blows it out of the seams everywhere. So we take our 5-gallon buckets, we put a vent tube in the side. Then I'll show you what we do next. It really works nice. You simply take your 5-gallon bucket, you set it underneath the unit, and this just clamps nicely over the top of the bucket. It actually makes a nice seal. You kind of wiggle it. In fact, you can see I'm probably off the ground now. So all the weight of the crusher is pushing onto the 5-gallon bucket. But what happens is the unit sucks air in through the feed trough, and then the air goes through the machine, and then the air has to go someplace. So if you don't create a vent in your bucket, the air is going to blow out all the seams and cracks and crevices, wherever it can get out. So it's really important. See, what happens internally is we have a piece of steel that's 100% balanced. In fact, we pay a lot of money to have these suckers balanced. But anyways, this is the blade that's revolving. And as this blade revolves at, let's say, 3,600 RPMs, the rocks shoot out of this and they hit a hard wall. And when it hits that wall, you have such a strong impact that the rock just turns into powder. It's very similar to like taking a rock, shooting it out of a shotgun against a piece of steel. Poof! That rock turns into powder. Same concept with this piece of equipment. But this is the type of blade that's in it, and this is also balanced before we put it in there. All right, one thing I like about the way the frame is all set up, it's extremely adjustable. So if you want to take your handles and move it in or out, you can just do it simply by setting to the desired location and then locking down your, I call these Mickey Mouse bolts. Makes it really easy. And you can also adjust to different size buckets. If you have a little shorter bucket or a taller bucket, it gives you a chance to, with a lot of custom adjustments on it. All right, whenever using a rock crusher of any kind, whether it's ours or someone else's or even our larger machines, it's extremely important that you have to wear a dust masker system. So it's super important that you maintain the air filters. So you have an inner filter and an outer filter. You can go ahead and clean the outer filter multiple times, but the inner filter you have to replace. So, and again, the #1 killer of these engines are people allow their engine oil to get dirty, and they allow their air cleaners to get plugged up, and then the engine starves for air, and it runs out of horsepower. The engine stall easy, so it's extremely important to keep that maintained. Also, one other important facet in regard to the fuel: never leave fuel in your engine. The gasoline we have nowadays will plug up the carburetors in a matter of even a couple weeks if you let fuel sit in your carburetor. So always maintain your air cleaners, your fuel system, and also your oil. All right, I'm going to get ready to fire the machine up, but I'm going to go through a basic safety check. I'm going to make sure that I have some safety glasses, which I'm wearing right now. I'm going to have my dust mask. I'm going to check my engine oil, and I'm going to make sure I have plenty of fuel in the engine. Also, on the carburetor, you'll notice right here there's a red knob, and that is used to open and close fuels of the carburetor. I have to make sure that's open before I fire the engine up. All right, so I'm getting ready to run it. I've already gone through my safety check, but I'm also, through that little port in the side of the bucket, I'm going to plug in a 2-inch vacuum hose, and you notice I have just an old vacuum bag on the end. Again, you want to filter the air coming out of this so it doesn't go into the environment. So real simply, I'm just going to set my bag down here. I'm going to plug. All I did is slide the vacuum hose into that rubber port. It makes a really nice, good seal, and I'm ready to fire it up. So I'm going to go ahead and take my engine, put it on about half throttle. Alright, so I just kind of did a quick test on it and everything's working fine. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to process some material through it. I've got a 5-gallon bucket here. We're probably pushing around, I don't know, maybe 65 pounds of 1" and minus rock. Some of it may be oversized, so we may have to clear the machine, the top hopper, because remember, it can only handle 1" and minus material. So I'm going to go ahead and fire it up and test run it again. But again, you want to make sure that you have your throttle running wide open. On an RC1, speed is everything. The faster you get that blade running, the better, the finer the grind you're going to get. So it's very important to run the engine wide open. So it's not even a bad idea to check your RPMs on your engine, put like a little tiny tack on there, and see if you're getting up around 3,600 RPM. It does make a big difference. The faster you go, the finer the grind. Just a quick story on how we came up with the RC1 Cart. A few weeks before we started the video, I was doing a demonstration for a customer, and my plant manager, Mario Magana, noticed that I was struggling to pick this thing up and move it around and get the buckets on and off. So Mario came up with the idea all on his own. So 3-4 days later, he had this machine ready to go, tested it, and when I did the video, it was the first time I had actually used it myself, but everything worked perfect. I was amazed how well this thing worked. Okay, so I just ran the 5-gallon bucket. A couple oversized pieces, and you got to get these out quickly. You don't leave them in there. But it processed that probably the 65 pounds in about, I don't really time, but just guessing, probably 2 to 3 minutes. So it goes through it pretty fast. So now what I'm going to do, this is what I like. I'm going to take another bucket. I'm going to have it just sit off to the side here. And I'm going to take the crusher, I'm going to lift it off of here. It's all set up, get my bucket all nice set down in position, so I'm ready to go back to work now. If you take a look over here, go ahead and shoot the inside of that. This is one pass, okay? And there's a couple oversized pieces, but for the majority of it, it's probably got the bulk of it down between, I'll say, 1/4 inch and about 30 mesh. But now it goes really fast once we get beyond this first pass. The first pass is always the toughest. So again, we're still at about, actually feels heavier, it feels like more like 70 pounds, but we'll check it later. Now I'm going to go ahead and fire it up now. Now you'll find it interesting because when I run the second pass, it goes through super fast. Again, you should be wearing your air filter mask. I think I'll put it on for this because it's going to get dirtier.
Alright, so we went ahead and we weighed the 5-gallon bucket of material, and we had approximately 70 pounds of material including the bucket. So we went ahead and processed the first bucket of primarily the coarse material. And the first bucket took just a little over 2 minutes. And then each following bucket that we processed, or each following pass that we processed, it went quicker and quicker. So the second pass on the material, I believe it processed maybe about 1 minute and 10 seconds at the most. The third pass on the material, I believe it processed it right about 1 minute or just a little less. And the fourth pass was somewhere around 50 seconds. So that ends up to be about 5 or 6 minutes. When you add up switching the buckets and everything else, so let's just say that we processed, it took 10 minutes to run the 5-gallon bucket, including switching everything over. So if you do the math, that's somewhere around 400 pounds an hour. One of the new features of the stand is that we actually strap the rock crusher down to the stand itself. And I really like this because what it does, it enables us to keep a nice low center of gravity, keeping the machine from being too top heavy. Plus, by spreading out the rubber wheels to the outside and the legs to the front side, we have a lot of stability. When you just have it sitting on the top of a bucket, it's not that stable, so you have to take a lot of care and caution not to allow the machine to tip over. Another nice feature on the RC1 Cart is when you take the crusher and you drop it down onto the bucket, it actually makes a nice seal. There's a small thin steel plate, and then that plate is lined with a rubber seal. So when you drop the crusher down on top of the 5-gallon bucket, you have a good tight seal in between the two surfaces. And again, this reduces the chance of any dust leaking out at that point. A very important point that I should bring up, the RC1 Crusher is not a heavy-duty production piece of equipment. It is a pilot mill. It is a test mill. It is not designed to run, 8 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's really designed more for the weekend warrior who may have, half a dozen 5-gallon buckets that he wants to process. It is a great little machine. It's portable, it's compact, it's relatively low cost, but you have to keep in mind it's not like the big RC46 crushers that can run 24/7. This is more of a pilot test type plant. Now there also are some consumables in this machine. That rotating blade I showed you earlier, those sell for about $50 a piece. Now a blade's going to last you anywhere from probably as little as 6 hours to as much as 20 hours of operation. It just depends on the type of material that you're running. But again, for size, the amount of money you're going to put into it, for the convenience, you won't find anything else in the world even close to this category. And now we have this new stand coming out soon. I'm just completely impressed on how the machine performs and how easy it is to handle. Before, it took really almost 2 guys to run the machine. You would have to have 2 guys to pick up the crusher itself and drop it onto the second bucket. This new stand system just is a game changer. Talk about what a difference it makes. As you can see by the bucket in the background, how we were filtering the air, the rag fell off and it's really pumping out a lot of dust. So again, another good reason to wear your dust mask, and also it gives you an idea that you do need to have some kind of filtration coming off the discharge. You could just simply, have a longer hose and discharge it that way, but as you can tell, it's putting out a lot of dust. So you're crushing some of that material, is getting down, 80, 100 mesh material, and that stuff gets airborne, and you need to contain it. In fact, when we did a final cleanup, we probably had in that bucket probably a good 5 pounds of just fine dust that was settled in there. So it's important to be able to contain that dust because it could carry some values as well. All right, we just ran our third pass on the material and we're getting set up for the fourth pass, but look how fine this is. I mean, this is plenty fine enough for any sluice box or conventional gravity type separation system. You can tell it's really doing a nice job. So 3 passes may be fine for, you know, almost half the applications. Well, I'm really pleased how the whole thing's working, and I really love this stand. I can't say enough about it. It's stable, it's easy to handle. Now, it will be sold separately. We haven't quite come up with a price yet, but I think it's going to sell for somewhere between $175 and $200. But the cool thing is it completely folds up, and it's completely adjustable to any kind of container you're going to place it on. So I'm real happy with it so far. After the video, we went back and checked the material, and it was in the 30 to 80 mesh range. There was quite a bit in the 100 mesh, but as an average, 30 to 80 was a good number. We did do some further running of the material, and I was able to get it down to about 150 mesh. The only problem is you have to run like 5, 6, 7 passes, and it just becomes impractical at that point. So when people ask me, what does this crusher do? I'd say max 150, and it really excels in that 30 to 100 mesh range. So, but again, it's a low-cost, portable piece of equipment.
Okay. So I just ran 3 to 4, I ran actually 4 passes on the material, so let's take a look at it. I noticed on the third pass, it was probably perfect to run across a sluice box or a conventional recovery system. On the fourth pass, we should be just about right for like a shaker table. Now if you come look in here, that is some seriously fine material. I have no doubt probably 90% of that would fall through a 20 mesh. Probably 85% of it would fall through probably like maybe a 50 mesh. I mean, make that about a 50 mesh screen. Anyways, you can see it's extremely, ooh, it's hot too. That dirt gets super hot after a while. But look at that. That's perfect for a shaker table. If you were to crush the material a whole lot finer, let's say down to 150, 300 mesh, it won't really go much finer than this. You get a little bit, you can make one more pass, you get a little finer, but it gets to a point where it doesn't work that well. But this is about the perfect size to deal with for most applications. Now, I've had some experience with shaker tables. And I noticed with a table that if you're processing the material and it's super fine, the table gets like muddy, slimy, okay? I call it like a slime on a table. When you take material like this, that's about averaging between 30 and let's say 80 mesh, what I'm looking at right now, the table processes it nice, even like a conventional, like a miracle matting or some other kind of a gravity separation system. But this does an amazing job. And I'll do the math in a few minutes, but it looks like we were processing each 5-gallon bucket in approximately, maybe the first one, maybe 2 minutes, and each preceding run, it took probably about 1.5 minutes to run. Now you have to also listen to your crusher. You have to hear the motor running. If you hear the motor running and it starts to bog down, you got to slower the feed. If it's running real easy material, then you can just run the material faster and faster. It just depends on the specific gravity of the material and the type of material that you're processing. But for an inexpensive little crusher, $1,099 and a nice little stand, I really love the stand. In fact, it's the first time I used it, but I'll tell you what, I won't use it without it because it makes it so easy. See, if I was by myself, I would have to take the engine, shut it off, pick it up, set it on to the next bucket. That's a lot of work, and I'm not a spring chicken anymore. My back I may only be 56, my back feels like it's about 80 years old. But my main point is that I can handle the machine by myself. A, you can roll it around easy, which I really like. B, to transfer from bucket to bucket doesn't require any real strength, or you don't have to worry about hurting yourself. So I'm actually really excited. Everything worked amazing, and I love the way this all folds up. You know, I can throw this in the back of my Jeep and go anywhere out in the desert, crush the material. And even if you have tailings that you want to process, or if you have some dry washer material that has a lot of heavy conglomerate, you can run it through this machine pretty quickly and then process the dry washer. We do that on occasion, and it works out really good for us.